Hi, this is Nita Kruger. I want to add an addendum to the following episode. As you go through that episode, depending on where you're at in recovery from abuse, narcissistic abuse, or codependency, the big three, it is really important and crucial for you to take this reality into your soul, into your mind, into your body, and your spirit. You have the right to a safe, healthy, loving, respectful life and environment. You have the right, just by the fact that you were born, you have the right to create a home around you, a space around you where you are not in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn 24/7. Being in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is a trauma response if we're in it all the time. If we have PTSD from toxic relationships, if we have other mental, emotional disorders or lapses from toxic relationships, those are trauma responses. We are not required or called to this earth to live in our trauma responses for eternity. It is entirely within your grasp and your right to heal. Enjoy this episode. I hope that you find true value for you. Hey, gorgeous you. Welcome to today's episode of Infinity Within Coaching Podcast, where we work together to build a healthy, safe, secure, independent you who is abuse-free, narcissist-free, emotional, psychological, trauma-free, where you get to live the life that you want to live. Action your dreams. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? But we get a little caught up. We get caught up in one tiny little thing instead of being able to really see all of the hundreds of threads of knowledge that we need to have in order to truly break free of abuse. And I think that's why I kind of decided about today's episode being about why is it important to work with a coach or a therapist. When we sit in our own space of shame, of guilt, of absolute horror at being realistic about what has happened to us, we allow that to have power over us. When we work with a trauma-informed coach or a trauma-aware therapist, or we're in a support group for victims of recovery from traumas, we start to expand the reality that we're not alone, first of all. First and foremost, we're no longer isolated and alone in our pain and confusion. And that gives it power to grow out of control. I have sat within swirling PTSD and panic attacks at the beginning of my healing journey, and it was terrifying. In fact, you can scroll way back to the beginning of my podcast and you can listen. You can listen to some of those podcasts, and it talks about specific instances, even of depersonalization, suicidal thoughts. It's terrifying stuff. When we put ourselves in places with supports around us and people who are going through similar experiences, we cut off that cord of isolation. And I'm going to use like sticky note paper. You know the back of sticky note paper? We attach ourselves to a larger circle of people who have been through similar or shared experiences. So we kind of come out of the closet of darkness where we've been hiding in fear, and we step into a circle where a little candlelight is burning. And that little candlelight gives off warmth and hope and life. And we realize we're no longer alone. in a support group, there's typically somebody who's the leader of the group to ensure safety, rules, decorum is followed and that everybody maintains a safe, healthy connection and space. Group environments are powerful first steps. Powerful first steps. If you are not comfortable going to that in person, I would highly recommend that you seek out groups on social media, on your computer, things that you can call into and just listen. For any kind of complex trauma problem that you might be facing, there's going to be some type of support group available for you to reach out to. When we get a little bit braver and we get a little tiny bit of that isolation, quite honestly, we get the isolation burned away by the light of the candle. And that light of the candle is in the awareness that what's happening to us is real, it's not okay, and we're not alone. So once we get that isolation burned off a bit, we can typically realize that we have a tiny bit of hope inside of us that we can end this, that we can learn different. And this is a spot where we can go, okay, I need more help. I need individual help. Or maybe I need a course. And we reach out for courses and books, right? We spend a little bit of our financial resources on still secret, right? Because we don't want anybody to know what's happening to us, except for the people in the group. Only they know the people that we have showed up to and they've seen at me and I've seen them, or they've seen my call handle on my phone. You know, like if you're attending, I one time attended an Al-Anon group, and I only went once because I was so disheartened. Some of the people in that group have been showing up to that group, supporting other people for over 30 years. They have spent 30 years of their life not moving forward, still having the same utter grief for their losses of their family to alcohol and addiction. And I left that group that day. They wanted me to join and come back. And I honestly thought I might. It was an online video kind of thing. And I got off of that call and I realized, oh my God, I refuse to sit here. I refuse to sit here inactive for 30 years. I refuse to sit here inactive for 30 more minutes. And right then and there, in the safety and comfort of my own home, I picked up my journal pad and I wrote out my plan. And my plan was to end all of the relationships that were causing me such pain and that I was chasing. Because while I had broken free of the primary relationships that caused decades, I continued to repeat unhealthy relationships because I didn't know better. I did not have enough self-worth, self-love. I did not have enough development of self-skills in order to cut through the new people who had come into my life, who I loved so much, loved, cherished, respected these people so much. But the interesting thing was they were just as unhealthy, just in a different way. I had to change me deeper, and I decided right then and there in that Al-Anon meeting that I was going to change me deeper. By that time, I was already in therapy, but I realized that I had outgrown that therapeutic space. So I decided in that written note to me that I was going to change that therapy as well. I was going to take a little break and shake everything up because Where I was at was not getting me where I needed to be. I needed to clear some trauma blocks and I needed to heal deeper and learn a lot of skills that I simply didn't know how to learn. I knew I wasn't going back to Al Anon, and I didn't. In your healing journey, those groups are good for you as long as they are good for you. But the moment that you feel like, oh, I need more, you need to start reaching out for more. And the uncomfortable thing of that, if you're coming from a space of zero value for self, it is really hard to begin spending money on yourself, but that is exactly what you are going to have to do. You are going to have to invest in you. Now, if you've reached out to the group and gotten all the free online resources that you can possibly get, and there are a lot out there, trust me. You go through that second level. You order courses that are in your budget. You order books that are in your budget. But all that those do really is lead you to more questions about yourself. You really are going to likely, if you're not changing your behaviors, some people just need a little tune-up. But if you were born into an abusive, narcissistic, addictive, disconnected family, you have never been exposed to healthy, self-loving, independent ways of life. That's just the truth. It's not bad to say it out loud and to acknowledge it. It's just a truth. It's not something that you'll be able to tell, an abusive family member because they don't care, right? They still want you to be small, invisible, meek, and mild so that you can be controlled, manipulated, abused, and used for their purposes. But here is where we get really real with ourselves. Because I knew very, very early on that I was done. I was done being in the dark. I was done being secretly hiding. I wanted out. And I was going to grab onto my kids and drag them along with me out of the self-behaviors that were allowing this treatment of me to happen. But I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why people were so mean. I didn't understand my role in it. So I decided eventually that I was going to pay for domestic abuse therapy. And I did. Not just for me, but for 4 teenage children as well. 1 preteen. And we went to therapy every single week for years. The kids went for over 2 years. I went for 4 or 5 years. Every single week. With the kids, I would end up like 5-6 hours of therapy a week. It literally was a full-time job. So, and I'm going to throw in there, this was just me and my children. This was the new family, the family that was embracing a healthy, self-respecting. We were building something unbuilt in my family lineage. I had taken on, I say we, the kids and I, because I wasn't going to let them go. No matter how ugly it got, I learned new tools to help them and to help me understand how to be a more boundaried, a more supportive, secure, self-loving parent. Kids mimic what they know. If I have 0 self-worth, how do you think that they're going to learn self-worth? Well, they're not. If I feel invisible, how do you think they're going to feel? Reactive to my invisibility, for sure. So, after signing up for therapy, I started to get a little bit braver. I started to speak to the world a little bit about what was happening in my life. I started to find my voice. And I worked and worked and worked on finding my voice for a really long time because it takes as long as it takes. During this time frame, I suffered some major catastrophic illnesses and injuries that set me off track for months, 2 years, one of them. But I never lost my voice. And even though I paused on therapy for 2 months, an injury forced me back to therapy with a new therapist because the old therapist I wasn't able to grow with anymore. We had hit a plateau. Hard as it was to move on from that very trusted space, I had outgrown what I could learn. So it's okay for you to go when you learn all you can learn from somebody to go like, I need another resource to teach me. I value myself enough that I'm going to go put myself in an uncomfortable position of finding another therapist or another coach or another teacher, another support group. I'm going to elevate. I'm going to elevate who I am bringing around me, the ideas I'm going to listen to, and the actions that I'm going to hold myself accountable to because I want to build new behaviors and habits to break free of the big three: abuse, narcissistic abuse, and codependency. With intention, we can begin to feel safe in our body, our mind, our spirit, and our soul. We have that right. And I say it all the time just because the very fact that you were born is evidence enough that you have the right to be safe in your own body and nervous system. So you will come to a point where you will either step into investing in yourself, meaning monetarily. You'll start small, and then you'll work up, and you will be, like I was at one point, spending $600 a month on therapy copays for all 5 of us, because there was nothing more important in my life than ending the generational trauma and ensuring that my grandchildren would not feel the pain that I or my children had. I took full responsibility for what my children had felt. Didn't matter that there were 2 parents. Didn't matter because only one parent was willing, capable to stand in that space and say no more. A therapist or a trauma-informed coach, and a trauma-informed therapist, not a marriage counselor, not a church counselor, not somebody who is not trauma-informed, because if they are not trauma-informed, they're likely going to cause you more problems than good. Somebody who has trauma experience, awareness, and has helped people heal and has healed themselves, because the person you're talking to, they are only going to be able to teach you as much as they have experienced and lived through themselves. So you have to get really critically aware of who it is that you're entrusting the rebuilding or the finding of your soul to. And when you decide to invest in yourself, embrace the excitement and purpose of that. Celebrate that. Reward yourself with that. Buy a new journal. Get a new scented candle. Get some kind of bath soak that you love. Even for guys, they have amazing, I get it for my sons, muscle relaxing bath soak for after the gym. Join the gym, go on walks, go on hikes. Pick out your favorite healthy food. Cut back on alcohol, sugar, smoking. Small changes add up over time, okay? Give yourself enough time to build new healthy habits and behaviors. Give yourself the right people, the right support system to untangle all those threads that are just flying around in your soul. And I've been there. I know how terrifying anxiety, PTSD, panic, depersonalization, long-term concussion recovery, abuse recovery, narcissistic abuse recovery, I know how hard all of these things are. I have walked that walk. I get it. I know what it's like to sit in a cloak of invisibility and just wish for a moment that you could be fucking heard or seen. And you will, once you learn to value yourself enough through this hard, really gratifying work. When you learn to dump into those buckets of self-love and self-respect, when you learn to dump into learning new behaviors and habits, boundaries, how to show up for you, how to say no, when you learn all these skills and tools, and you learn to recognize red flags versus green flags, when you learn all of those things, it becomes less and less and less important to know every single little detail about how a narcissist breathes, stays alive, how they decorate their habitat, right? You just see them for the reptile that they are, and they are a reptile who's going to hurt you. And you just accept that to be true, and you step around it, because it's eventually, it becomes not your problem. Right? It becomes not your problem because you have developed such a secure sense of self. You evidence to yourself through boundaries and self-love and self-respect over and over again that you are worthy of showing up for you. Because that's the key to it all. The key to it all is locked away in never having been taught, never having learned the skill to show up for yourself and value yourself. Start wherever you're at. Add to whatever you're doing. And let's get realistic. Some people are never going to make it to this 20th minute in this podcast because they are not the generation that's ready to heal and break free of trauma. A cycle of pain will travel 3 to 5 generations before somebody is strong enough, powerful enough to say no more. But think of the opposite of that. Think of if every single person born into this world could be born into a safe, happy, loving, cherished environment where they could nurture their soul's skills and passions to their full capacity. That is how we could really change the world. Every single bit of self-healing that you do in this generation will affect your future and all the people around you, including your family. I'm incredibly proud of you for showing up today. Thank you for staying with me through this talk. This was a powerful talk. I'm really glad that we had this moment. Thank you. My name is Nita Kruger. I am the host of Infinity Within Coaching and the Stop Normalizing vlog now on YouTube. Follow me on social media, click subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast, and click subscribe to the vlog, and let's change the way that people show up for themselves. Have a fabulous day.